He's up late to give you the news you can't get anywhere else early. He fights for truth and justice and the American way. Please welcome our pal from the Paragon Trust Company, the real Tony D. Tony D'Angelo.
All right. Our main guy, Tony D'Angelo, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday to chat about the world of politics and money and news and all that great stuff. You can find him on the X at Tony D'Angelo 7. Of course, on Thursdays, he's got his own YouTube show, 30 with Tony, which is fabulous. It's a must watch. Tony, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Lee Elci. Good morning, everyone. I'm proud to be among you.
All right, talk to me. You want to start with the big, beautiful bill and talk about sort of the generalities about that?
Going to try not to do glittering generalities, but I'm probably going to end up doing a couple. Interesting article. When we finished up last night on the root reaction, I started to read an article, Connecticut Mirror, July 7th, the Pasianakis article. Apparently the Democrat Brain Trust struggled yesterday in a press conference to analyze and frame the big, beautiful bill. And it leads off with a picture and a commentary from our Congressman Joe Courtney, who makes a Joe Courtney-esque quote. There's going to be a race out there for the truth in terms of what happened last week, said Joe Courtney. There's going to be forces and money and groups that are going to try to confuse and mislead people about what actually this bill is all about. Now, rumor has it this man has a law license. You think he would have learned to read along the way, but ostensibly not. Typically what you get from Courtney. And it goes on. Our governor, Ned Lamont, known affectionately here as King Governor Ned Lamont, the unaccountable, says, in his perfect welfare state mentality, this really doesn't hurt the funding for a few years. Now, there's no thought as to how can I use this? Can this help me? Can this not help me? There's no analysis here going on whatsoever. It gets worse. John Larson, who makes the statement, the state legislature will pick up the slack. Translation, Lee Elci and Tony D'Angelo and multiple thousands out there will pick up the slack, and John Larson could be John Larson. And then Sean Scanlon's comments. I won't ruin the dignity of the, the viewers and the listeners as far as what he may have said. Republican comments focusing on one thing, the SALT deduction, the state and local tax deduction is increased. That's as far as it goes. Something, but disappointing. The comment of the day is our senior senator, Dick Blumenthal, saying, don't expect them, meaning Republicans, to be having a lot of town halls in the future until the impact of this bill becomes clearer. In other words, you got how many people here who are screaming about a bill they know absolutely nothing about. They know as much collectively here as I might about building the neutron bomb. And believe me, you don't want to see me start to do that. Right. And which is terrible. I mean, me, myself, and I, you see, it's politicians can grandstand. They can make statements. They can come out like you were saying this morning about the Epstein files, which is sickening, by the way. I mean, Trump better get a hold of this thing in a hurry, for crying out loud. This could take down his presidency. But, leaving that as an aside, there is something in this bill really that several things, but we were talking about this last night, that's economic dynamite that could really help this state and help a lot of poor states. It's called the Qualified Opportunity Zone. And now here, me, myself, and I'm reading what this is about. You've got what, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people that have no clue of what I'm going to be talking about. So, okay, it's time for a little bit of education. What is a qualified opportunity zone? This is where you can designate a tract of land. Connecticut, I think, has something like 850 separate tracts, designated areas in the state, which are different characteristics. How it came about, I don't know. But if you fall below in these areas, 70%, I want to get this exactly right, of the the income line and 20% of the poverty line, and or you can qualify for a qualified opportunity zone. To show you, Lee Elci, how bad off we are in the state, a third of the state qualifies for qualified opportunity zones. I don't care what they tell you. I don't care what they're talking about. That's it. I mean, that's basically it, just based upon sheer numbers. And when you have this, you can have any kind of a business. Now, a business could be a rental property trade or business. You got all these, people running around crying the poor mouth, we need housing, we need housing, we need housing. When's my ship coming in? Well, here it is, the Queen Mary. You can have an investment in rental housing, and the investor, all they have to do is buy it. In the first year, they could write off the entire cost of it. And then if they hang on to it for 10 years, they will have absolutely no gain whatsoever, no depreciation recapture, no taxes on the appreciation. I mean, this, and not only that, but think of what you're doing here by definition. Whoever does this, they're all, housing nuts here. We need housing. We've got to destroy zoning and all this other kind of stuff. What you're doing is you've got existing infrastructure which you can build on. You've got an existing patterns and means of doing things. You don't have to tear up the landscape. You don't have to disturb people who don't want to live near cities. But what you're doing is you're taking that investor, if you will, and you're making him commit to an area for 10 years. And guess what? It's his investment. And guess what? He wants his tax-free, benefit at the end. He ain't going to screw it up. Government is going to screw it up. This guy ain't going to screw it up if you entice him to do it. And this is where I believe there is a split in the Democrat Party, because if there are any sane Democrats left, maybe Lamont has modicums of sanity from time to time, maybe one, maybe another, but people who understand that rental properties don't take care of themselves, and free rent is not a good thing, and rent control never, ever, ever worked. Go back and look at the 1960s and John Lindsay in New York City. Reed from the Northwest Hills actually properly corrected me. He said rent control is even older than that, Tony. It goes back to the Second World War. But none of this stuff ever, ever, ever is going to work, because you've got to upkeep properties. And the concern, however, as this goes on, is if you have something like this. Now, it's not only rental property. Let's be clear about that. With the qualified opportunity zones, could be a business, could be a manufacturing business, could be any profit-making endeavor. Now, you can literally start turning cities around overnight by enticing private investment. But where you have the split here in the Republican parties, you got, and the Democrat Party, excuse me, is you got your somewhat sane people and you've got your botzos. Will the somewhat sane people, kind of override the botzos and say, hey, look, this can really work? Not even looking at the fact that Trump did it. Guess what? Don't even look at Trump. The United States Congress did it. Trump signed the bill. And making this thing work, or are we just in such a sewer cesspool where people think it's just going to be taxed? We're going to live in the Mamdani Zoran Mamdani United States. That's really the concern. But what we've got here is a solution for just about every single weak area in New York. Now, do people really get the concept of this, and they really have the courage and the will to say, hey, in order to do this, you want to get somebody in to do a building, you want to get somebody in to do a business, guess what? You can't have defund the police. Guess what? You got to have safe areas. Guess what? You got to make it so they want to live there and they want to stay there. Or are they going to have to go out and hire their own security forces? I mean, this really, to me, is a litmus test as to a bunch of Democrats sitting there, saying, I don't understand any of this stuff. I mean, 4 of them, I think, have law licenses, for crying out loud. And Republicans who get very little of this. I mean, I'm excited about this, but I am somewhat concerned that the grasp of this will be lost upon many. Your ball.
Tony D'Angelo with us. And all right, so you covered a lot there in that sort of synopsis of what you went through. You think this is a good vehicle? We talked about try to close the gap between the ultra rich and the ultra poor, or recreate the middle class. Some of the things within this bill, do you feel like they can recreate the lost middle class, Tony?
Well, if leaving aside opportunity zones for a moment, which are quote unquote a development tool, there's a lot of good things in this bill, particularly for small business. I wish they were better, but for example, we have a lot of, our listeners and viewers who are in trade businesses, and they go out and they work and they have equipment and they're heavily capital intensive. Well, now we're dealing with 100% write-offs in the first year, so that you have a choice. You can look at a truck, say, and the truck is, I don't know, $100,000. And by the time you get done taking your tax benefit given to you by this bill, the truck is 50. Now that's something. That's $50,000 in your pocket. And then there's other things. Manufacturing businesses, really, people with domestic manufacturing, doesn't have to be a big thing, but there is a great benefit for investing in building a factory with a 15% payroll tax credit. I mean, this is real money. So I think there is a means for doing this. There's a means for quote unquote economic empowerment. I think there's a better means if you had people in government that actually saw this, and not a bunch of clownish stuff that we see like in our state from, the Department of Economic and Community Development. It's like, use the stuff that's there. If you use the stuff that's in this bill, there will be spending effect and people will go on. Yeah, of course, you got the reduced taxes, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. There's limitations there, but it's something. But there is there is a benefit here, and I think it is a good benefit. But I think the biggest benefit that's here is small business. And I don't know, you take a state like ours, how can our state do anything at all unless we somehow make it useful for small business? And for that, I mean, there's a lot we have to do down the line. I mean, our tax code will never work. It's horrible. It's way too complicated. It's way too expensive. If investors come in and they say, yeah, I want to do a qualified opportunity zone, but like, what's the state income tax? What is the state of the treasury? And that was the biggest thing when this opportunity zone provision, which is now enhanced, when we were talking about it, I think it was 2019, I was at a meeting in New York and people were mentioning it. And these were people who were looking to invest in qualified opportunity zones and people with the means to do it. And they said, I'm not coming near Connecticut. It's a mess. I mean, there's too much debt. There's the cities won't get fixed. People don't want to fix the cities. I mean, I think in a very long answer to your very short and succinct question is, yeah, there's a benefit here, but I think government has to get on board, understand this thing,
Right.
not be stupid like Courtney and Blumenthal and Larson and say, I don't know what's here. Well, I mean, they ever teach you guys to read? I guess not. And, start to cooperate a little bit. That's basically it. And that's my concern, because I think they're so mired in their whatever, give me money, Democrat welfare state stupidity. Republicans may be somewhat better, oftentimes not enough. That's where we're at. That's the reality of it. But don't say I didn't tell you this couldn't help you.
All right, let me go to a couple different topics, things we touched on a little bit last night. Maybe you can expand on a little bit here today. Tony D'Angelo is with us. Again, you can follow him on X, Tony D'Angelo 7. Of course, Thursdays, he's got his own show on YouTube. I'll let him tell you about that in just a second. I just want to go back to housing for a second. And, I know this isn't really part of the bill, but I want to get your opinion on this. It's been bothering me. So I see everywhere I go, there's new apartments going up, and everybody's talking about whether it's, on the Capital Report, I was watching them talk about, well, where's the low income housing? Where's the housing? Where's the housing? And they're building and they're building and they're building and they're building and they're building. And the rents in some of these places are astronomical, Tony. And so my question to you is, who's going into these two bedrooms that are costing $4,000? There's one near where I live. I mean, it's as big as this room with a bedroom, 2 bedrooms, $4,000 a month. Who's affording that? And are they empty? And then where are all of these quote unquote so-called folks who are below this particular line? Where are they living? I mean, I know that's a complex, sort of muddled question, but I think you get the gist of it, right?
Well, you're never going to fill the entire thing at market. Once the builder has built it, and gets out of it, he's out of town. So what are you going to have? You're going to have a couple of, and this is the age old story, you're going to have a couple of people paying market, and then you're going to have a whole bunch of vacant apartments, to which the housing activists will come and say, well, we have to house the unhoused, so let's figure out a way to house them. Guess what? All you're really doing is you're making the housing project of the future. And as we know, what happened to the great housing projects of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, they all ended up in a pile of rubble and a pile of bullets and needles. I mean, that's basically where you're headed. Now, if you want to use a brainful approach to this, take the qualified opportunity zone and have somebody who will actually make an investment, will want to keep the building producing. They will manage the economics. It's proven government can't manage any of the economics here. Excuse me, and you will have this great this great need for housing. Genuine or not, I don't know. I mean, we're told things that I don't think that are true, but yet the rents really in many cases are too high. The market will adjust. Now, if there is manufacturing and if there is business development, the wages will adjust. It ain't that hard. It's too hard for most politicians. Let me tell you this. The way the opportunity zone provision is written right now, a third of it has got to be in rural places, like we were talking about last night. Drive up and down Eastern Connecticut, you see all these hollowed out mills. You see the wreckage of days gone by. You see what, sorry, the term, I used it last night, but it's true. White Appalachia. Basically, the poor white who is the descendant of the Industrial Revolution, who basically right now is on a how could I put it, is existing on social services and welfare. This is a chance, really, if done correctly, to turn all of that in a different direction. Is the mind and the will out there to do it? I think a lot of it is looking at it saying, hey, the way we're doing things isn't going to have any sustaining value. And, to your point of earlier this morning, we know how good politicians are for correcting their own errors. But yeah, there's some great possibilities here. But yeah, I mean, these things that are being built, they're going to crash. They can't possibly sustain themselves. And, unfortunately, the more that are out there, the more wreckage we're going to have.
Tell everybody what they get on Thursday, Tony.
On Thursday, we'll be talking more economics, 30 with Tony 3. And you will find that you'll find me type in 30 with Tony on Google, also on X, and we have a lot of fun. We will be talking about what we're talking about today, and we're going to be talking about some related things that you will find interesting. Plus, we've got our classic clips, and we got the bossest music on the planet. Maybe not as good as yours, but I kind of like it.
I like what you send me every week. So you get no complaints from me on all of that. Tony D'Angelo, Tony D'Angelo 7 on the X. My friend, have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too. Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
pal. There you go. Tony D, the great Tony D. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll come back here just a couple minutes. We'll chat with our very good pal, Bruce Flax. A little later on, Liz Karanowitz. All that coming up right here on the radio.
Baby, 1 in 5. No one here gets out of